No one in the chamber expected fear. The observation hall was bright, clean, and filled with confidence. Rows of alien scientists, military officers, and mental specialists stood behind transparent shields, watching the lone human in the center of the room. He was unarmed, restrained only by a soft energy field around his wrists. He looked calm, almost bored. One alien officer laughed softly. "So this is a human," he said. "This fragile creature?" Another replied with a smirk. "I expected more. He looks small." The human lifted his head slightly, hearing the tone even if he did not understand the words. At the center of the room stood Zyrakel, the most powerful telepath the alien empire had ever produced. She had entered the minds of war beasts, criminal hive minds, and even ancient machine intelligences. None had resisted her. None had harmed her. She turned to the observers. "You said the human mind is simple," she said calmly. "Yes," replied the lead researcher. "Emotional, disorganized, easy to control." Zyrakel studied the human. "Then this will take only moments." A military commander crossed his arms. "Proceed. Let us end the myths." The word myths echoed softly in the chamber. Zyrakel stepped closer to the human. "Do you understand what is about to happen?" she asked through the translator. The human looked up. His eyes were steady. "You're going to read my mind," he said. "Yes," Zyrakel replied. "It will not hurt." The human hesitated, then asked quietly, "And if it does?" Zyrakel smiled slightly. "Then you will forget." The human nodded once. "Okay," several aliens laughed. Zyrakel raised her hand and placed 2 fingers gently against the human's temple. The room fell silent. At first, nothing happened. Zyrakel frowned slightly. "That's strange," a scientist asked. "What do you see?" "I see." Zyrakel stopped. Her eyes widened. The connection snapped fully open. Zyrakel gasped. Suddenly, the chamber lights flickered. "What's happening?" someone shouted. Zyrakel staggered backward, but her hand remained locked in place, as if something was pulling her in. "No," she whispered. "This is wrong." Inside the human mind, there was no order. There was noise, screaming, silence, then screaming again. Zyrakel saw images flash faster than thought. Burning cities, collapsing buildings, soldiers bleeding in mud, children crying, hands shaking but still pulling triggers. She felt hunger. Cold, pain, loss, too much loss. "Disconnect her," a scientist shouted. Zyrakel screamed, not in anger, in terror. "I can't," she cried. "It's too deep." Her body arched as blue energy exploded around her head. The human shouted, "Hey, stop. Something's wrong." But Zyrakel was no longer hearing the room. She was drowning. She felt something ancient inside the human mind, not a monster, not a voice, but a rule. Survive, not calmly, not nobly. Survive at any cost. She felt fear layered over hope, rage wrapped around love, and 1,000 failures that never ended anything. Every death became fuel. Every wound became a lesson. "This species doesn't stop," Zyrakel screamed. "They don't stop." Blood ran from her nose. Alarms blared. "Psychic overload," someone yelled. "Her mind is collapsing," the human screamed in pain now. "I didn't do anything, I swear." Zyrakel tried to pull away. The human mind pulled back, not attacking, holding, showing, war after war, disaster after disaster. Humans losing again and again and standing back up every time. "This is not weakness," Zyrakel cried. "This is adaptation." Her scream cut off as her body went limp. She collapsed to the floor. Silence. The energy faded. The human fell to his knees, breathing hard. "What just happened?" he asked. No one answered. Medical teams rushed in, lifting Zyrakel onto a stretcher. Her eyes were open, staring, but unfocused. A commander whispered, "She didn't even touch his memories deeply." A scientist shook his head slowly. "She barely entered." Another asked in fear, "If that was the surface, what's underneath?" The human was helped to his feet. He looked around at the pale, shaken aliens. "You said it wouldn't hurt," he said quietly. No one met his eyes. As Zyrakel was carried out, she suddenly whispered, barely audible. "Never again." The chamber froze. "Doctor," someone asked urgently. "What did you see?" Zyrakel's lips trembled. She whispered one final sentence. "They are not safe to read." Her eyes rolled back. She passed out completely. The human stood alone in the center of the room, and for the first time in centuries, the aliens were afraid of a single human mind. Zyrakel woke up gasping for air. Cold light flooded her vision as the medical chamber came into focus. Smooth white walls, soft restraints around her arms, a low, steady hum from life support machines. For a brief moment, she did not know where she was or who she was. Then she remembered. Her body tensed and her heart rate spiked. "Disconnect the monitors," a medic said calmly. "She's conscious." Zyrakel tried to sit up but stopped when pain shot through her head. Her thoughts felt crowded as if something foreign still lingered inside them. She squeezed her eyes shut. "It's still there," she whispered. A senior researcher stepped closer. "You're safe, Zyrakel. The link is gone." She opened her eyes and looked at him slowly. "No," she said. "The link ended. That's not the same thing." The researcher frowned but said nothing. A military officer stood near the far wall, arms crossed, watching closely. "You failed a basic telepathic scan," he said. "That does not make humans special." Zyrakel turned her head toward him. Her expression was not angry, only tired. "I didn't fail," she said quietly. "I survived." Silence spread across the room. The officer stepped forward. "You screamed," he said. "You collapsed. Explain." Zyrakel took a slow breath. "When we enter other minds," she said, "we find order, instinct, fear, even chaos follows patterns." She paused, searching for the right words. "The human mind has no safe center." A technician glanced at another uneasily. "What does that mean?" the officer asked. "It means there is no place to stand," Zyrakel replied. "No calm point, no separation between memory and instinct." She stared up at the ceiling as if seeing something else. "They carry everything. Every fear, every loss, every failure." The researcher spoke carefully. "That sounds like emotional instability." Zyrakel laughed softly. "Yes," she said, "and they function anyway." She turned her head again. "The human did not resist me. He did not block me, he did not attack." "Then why were you harmed?" the officer demanded. "Because he opened the door," Zyrakel said, "and did not close it." She shifted slightly, discomfort clear on her face. "When I entered, I expected noise. What I found was pressure." "Pressure?" the researcher asked. "Endurance," Zyrakel corrected. "Layered endurance." She described it slowly, each word heavy. "I felt fear, but it did not stop action. I felt pain, but it did not end movement. I felt grief, but it did not break purpose." The room grew quiet. "Other species avoid pain," Zyrakel continued. "Humans walk through it." The officer shook his head. "That is not a weapon." Zyrakel looked at him directly. "No," she said, "it is worse." A commander entered the chamber then, his presence commanding instant attention. "Doctor," he said, "can humans be controlled?" Zyrakel did not answer immediately. "You can restrain a human," she said at last. "You can threaten one, you can even kill one," she swallowed. "But control," she shook her head. "No." "Why?" the commander asked. "Because humans adapt faster than fear," Zyrakel replied. "And they remember everything that tries to erase them." The commander's gaze hardened. "Are they a threat to the galaxy?" Zyrakel hesitated. "They are not hostile by nature," she said. "But they are dangerous when cornered." "How dangerous?" he pressed. Zyrakel's voice dropped. "They become very calm." That unsettled the room more than shouting would have. A technician entered hurriedly. "Commander," he said, "the human subject is awake." "And?" the commander asked. "He's cooperative," the technician replied, "but he's asking questions." "What kind of questions?" the commander asked. "About our technology," the technician said. "About our intentions, about why we're afraid." Zyrakel closed her eyes. "He's already processing the encounter," she whispered. "Already learning." The commander turned toward the door. "We'll speak with him." Zyrakel reached out weakly. "Do not touch his mind again," she said firmly. "We won't," the commander replied. "We'll talk." As they left, Zyrakel stared at the ceiling, her thoughts finally settling into one clear fear. Humans always begin with questions. The human was seated alone in a quiet chamber when the doors opened. He was no longer restrained. No energy fields, no guards standing too close. That decision alone revealed how uncertain the aliens had become. The human noticed it immediately. "So," he said calmly, looking up, "this is the part where you decide what to do with me." The commander entered first, followed by two researchers and a security officer who kept his distance. They stopped several steps away as if unsure how close was safe. "You are not in danger," the commander said. The human nodded slowly. "That's not an answer," he replied. The researchers exchanged glances. "You experienced an incident," one of them said. "Our telepath was injured." The human frowned. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," he said. "She touched my head and suddenly everything went wrong." The commander studied him carefully. "Did you feel anything unusual?" The human thought for a moment. "It felt like someone opened a door in my head," he said. "I didn't push, I didn't pull, I just let her see." "That was a mistake," the security officer muttered. The human looked at him. "No," he said calmly, "it was honest." The room went quiet. The commander stepped forward slightly. "What did she see?" The human's expression changed just a little. "My life," he said, "and a lot of lives before me." "That is not an answer," the researcher said. "It's the only one," the human replied. He leaned back in his seat. "You asked to see what humans are like," he continued. "You just didn't expect the whole picture." The commander's eyes narrowed. "You claim no responsibility for her collapse." The human shook his head. "I didn't attack her," he said. "I didn't even defend myself." "Then why did she scream?" the commander asked. The human hesitated. "Because," he said slowly, "humans don't turn pain off." The researchers stiffened. "We carry it," the human continued. "Every war, every disaster, every mistake." He looked directly at the commander. "And we keep going anyway." "That is not strength," the commander said. The human smiled faintly. "Depends on how bad things get." Silence settled again. The commander changed tactics. Do humans consider us enemies? The human blinked, surprised. No, he said, not yet. That answer concerns me, the commander replied. It should, the human said quietly. One researcher stepped forward. What would happen, he asked carefully, if your species were threatened? The human didn't answer right away. He looked down at his hands. Then we would do what we always do, he said. And that is, the commander pressed. We adapt, the human replied. Then we endure, then we change. The security officer shifted uneasily. You speak as if this is inevitable, the commander said. The human met his eyes. It is, he said. For us, the commander studied him for a long moment, then asked the question everyone had avoided. Are humans dangerous? The human considered it honestly. We're not predators, he said. We don't hunt for fun. We don't want your worlds. Then why does the galaxy fear you? The commander asked. The human sighed. Because we don't stop, he said, and because we remember who tries to erase us. The room felt colder. The researcher swallowed. What are you doing right now? He asked. The human raised an eyebrow. Talking, he said. No, the researcher said quietly. Mentally. The human paused. Learning, he said. The commander's posture stiffened. From what? From you, the human replied. From how you reacted, from what scared you. That is not possible, the commander snapped. The human smiled again, this time without warmth. You don't need telepathy to study behavior, he said. You just need pressure. The room went silent. A communicator beeped softly at the commander's side. He glanced at it, then looked back at the human. Our telepath has regained partial clarity, he said. She has made a formal recommendation. The human tilted his head. And, the commander hesitated, she advises we limit all mental contact with humans permanently. The human nodded. Smart, he said. And she warned, the commander continued, that if pushed further, humans will not react emotionally, but strategically. The human's voice was calm. She's right. The commander took a slow breath. What happens now? The human leaned forward slightly. That depends, he said. On what? The commander asked. On whether you keep asking questions, the human replied, or start making threats. The commander said nothing. The human stood up. I didn't come here to scare you, he said, but now you know. He turned toward the door. And what exactly do we know? The commander asked. The human paused. That the human mind isn't a weapon, he said. It's a record. He looked back one last time. And records remember. The doors slid shut behind him. The commander stood in silence, understanding something too late. Humanity was not being studied anymore. Humanity was studying back. The chamber of the Galactic Oversight Council had not been used in decades, yet now it was filled with uneasy voices and shifting shadows. Representatives from dozens of species appeared as glowing forms, armored figures, and projected minds. At the center of every discussion was one word that refused to fade. Human. The commander from the research facility stood before them, replaying fragments of the incident. Zyrakel's scream. The human standing unharmed. The medical readings no one could fully explain. This was not an attack, the commander said. It was exposure. Several council members reacted at once. You allowed direct mental contact? One demanded. That was reckless, another said. You endangered us all, a third added. The commander did not argue. We followed protocol, he said. The protocol failed. A thin, crystalline being spoke next, its voice slow and careful. The telepath survived. What is her recommendation? The commander hesitated, then answered. Zero mental contact with humans, permanent. The chamber fell silent. That has never been done, someone whispered. Because no species has ever caused psychic damage without intent, the crystalline being replied. Another council member spoke sharply. If humans are this dangerous, they must be contained. A low murmur spread. Contained how? Someone asked. They have no known psychic weapons, another said. And yet they broke one of our strongest minds, came the reply. The discussion shifted from curiosity to fear. They are already studying us, a military representative said. Behavior, reactions, hesitation. That is normal intelligence gathering, another argued. No, the representative replied. This is faster. Across the galaxy, orders began to move quietly. Surveillance on human systems increased. Trade access slowed. Communication delays were introduced. No announcements were made. No accusations spoken. The humans noticed immediately. On a small human station at the edge of mapped space, analysts watched the data change. They're pulling back, one said. Selective silence, another added. Careful, a third warned. That's not ignorance. That's testing. The human from the facility sat among them listening. They're afraid, he said calmly. How do you know? Someone asked. Because they stopped asking questions, he replied. Fear replaces curiosity. Back in the council chamber, a final proposal was placed forward. Limit human expansion, a senior voice said. Restrict their access, observe, do not provoke. A pause followed. And if they resist? Someone asked. Then we reassess, came the answer. The vote passed, not unanimously, but enough. The decision was sent out quietly across council space. Containment without confrontation. The commander from the facility watched the message leave the chamber, feeling no relief. This won't work, he said softly. Zyrakel, still weak but present through projection, turned toward him. They will understand what this means, she said. Sooner than you expect. On Earth and its outer colonies, the changes were subtle but clear. Supply routes slowed. Requests went unanswered. Joint research programs were paused without explanation. Human leaders gathered not in anger but in concern. They're closing doors, one said. Testing boundaries, another replied. Waiting to see how we react, the human from the facility added. And how should we react? Someone asked. The room fell quiet. We don't, the human said, not yet. What do we do then? A commander asked. We prepare, he replied, and we stay visible, calm, cooperative. And if they push harder, the human met their eyes. Then we adapt. Weeks passed. The galaxy waited. Humans adjusted. They rerouted trade, strengthened internal networks, shared information openly between colonies. No threats were made, no warnings issued. That worried the council more than protest would have. They're not angry, one council member said. They're patient, another replied. Then the first mistake happened. A distant monitoring station altered its orbit too aggressively. A human research vessel was damaged in the process. No lives were lost, but the message was clear. Testing had begun. At the council, voices rose again. They'll respond, someone said. They haven't, another replied. They will, Zyrakel said quietly, but not how you expect. On the human side, the incident was reviewed calmly. No retaliation, the human said. Not yet, someone objected. We learn first, he replied. Why they chose that location, why now? Days later, a report arrived. They weren't aiming at us, an analyst said. They were measuring response time. The human nodded. Then they've learned something, he said. Now it's our turn. He looked at the star map, eyes steady. They think containment keeps them safe, he said. They don't understand what containment does to humans. What does it do? Someone asked. The human answered quietly. It forces us to grow inward. Far away in council space, Zyrakel felt a familiar pressure return, not from contact, but from memory. They are adapting, she warned. You've started something. The council chamber grew still. Because deep down, they all understood the truth. Containment was no longer observation. It was provocation. Containment was never meant to feel like punishment, but to humans, it quickly began to feel that way. Supply ships were delayed without reason. Shared star charts arrived incomplete. Research requests were returned with polite silence. Nothing was openly hostile, yet everything felt controlled. Human leaders understood the pattern well. It was the same pattern they had seen many times before in their own history. When fear could not stop something, it tried to limit it quietly. They think slowing us down will keep them safe, one human analyst said. They always think that, another replied. The human who had been studied by the aliens stood near the observation window, watching distant traffic reroute around their sector. They're not trying to hurt us, he said. They're trying to feel in control. And that worries you, a commander noted. Yes, the human replied, because control based on fear never lasts. On the council side, frustration was growing. Reports showed that humans were not weakening. They were adjusting. Trade losses were absorbed internally. Communication delays were bypassed through new relay paths. Human systems became quieter, tighter, and more efficient. They're not protesting, a council member said. They're reorganizing, another answered. Zyrakel appeared through projection, her form steadier than before but still cautious. You're pushing them into a familiar space, she warned. They've lived under pressure before. We are preventing escalation, a council member insisted. Zyrakel shook her head. No, she said, you are changing their priorities. The shift came sooner than expected. A joint patrol near a human border world intercepted an unmanned alien probe gathering deep scan data. The probe did not retreat when detected. It continued scanning. Human command reviewed the footage. They crossed an agreed limit, one officer said. Is it a threat? Another asked. No, the human replied. It's a test. And the response? The commander asked. The human thought for a moment. We removed the probe, he said, cleanly, publicly, without damage. The probe was disabled and returned intact with a short message attached. Please ask before entering our space. The message spread quickly. On the council floor, reactions were mixed. They're asserting boundaries, one said. That's aggressive, another argued. It was restrained, Zyrakel corrected. They could have destroyed it. The incident should have ended there. It didn't. A separate council-aligned faction, acting without approval, took matters further. Believing humans were testing limits, they authorized a covert operation to access human data directly, mentally. A second telepath was sent, less experienced, less informed. Zyrakel sensed it before it happened. "No," she said urgently, "stop the operation." It was already too late. The telepath made brief contact with a human research node, not a person but a shared memory archive. The scream echoed across psychic channels. The telepath survived, but the damage was severe, not from attack but from overload. Emergency messages flooded council space. "What did they do?" someone demanded. "They didn't do anything," Zyrakel said, voice shaking. "You touched the wrong thing." "What was it?" a council member asked. Zyrakel swallowed. "It was not a mind," she said. "It was humanity's memory together." Silence fell. At the same moment, human systems flagged the intrusion. "They crossed a line," an analyst said quietly. The human closed his eyes briefly. "They didn't mean to," he said, "but intent doesn't undo impact." "What do we do now?" the commander asked. The human opened his eyes. "We respond," he said. "Once, clearly." Across human space, a message was prepared, not a threat, not an accusation, a statement. Mental contact with humans is no longer permitted. Any violation will be treated as harm. The message was broadcast openly. The galaxy reacted instantly. Some called it reasonable, others called it dangerous. "They're setting rules," a council member said. "They already did," Zyrakel replied softly. "You just didn't listen." Fear deepened. If humans could survive containment, if they could detect psychic intrusion, if their shared memory could overwhelm telepaths, what else were they capable of? The council convened again, voices sharp, unity cracking. "We must act before they do," one demanded. "They haven't attacked us," another argued. "Yet," came the reply. Zyrakel stood before them, her voice steady but heavy. "You are confusing restraint with weakness," she said, "and patience with delay." A council member asked the question no one wanted to answer. "What happens if humans decide we are a threat?" Zyrakel did not answer immediately. "When humans decide something," she said at last, "they don't rush." She looked around the chamber. "They prepare." On Earth, the human looked at the stars again, expression calm but resolved. "They're afraid now," someone said. "Yes," he replied, "and fear makes people choose poorly." "What are we choosing?" the commander asked. The human answered quietly, "To be ready." Far away, the council chamber fell into silence as a final realization spread. Containment had failed, fear had crossed into action, and the next response, human or alien, would no longer be careful. The galaxy did not announce its final decision. It never did. Instead, fleets began to move quietly. Patrol routes shifted closer to human space. Observation platforms multiplied. Trade channels tightened further. No single action was hostile, but together they formed a clear message. The galaxy no longer trusted humans. On Earth, the signs were impossible to ignore. "They're surrounding us without saying the word," one human commander said. "They want us contained permanently," another replied. The human stood at the center of the room, listening. He looked tired, not afraid. "This was always going to happen," he said. "Fear doesn't stop at caution. It demands control." "And if they try to take it?" the commander asked. The human was quiet for a moment. "Then we stop waiting," he said. Across the galaxy, Zyrakel felt it before any alarm sounded. A shift, a pressure. Not violent, focused. "They're aligning," she whispered. At the council chamber, voices rose again. "They're mobilizing," one member shouted. "We must strike first," another demanded. "If we wait," Zyrakel stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "No," she said firmly, "they are not preparing to attack." The chamber went still. "Then what are they doing?" someone asked. Zyrakel closed her eyes. "They are preparing to endure," she said, "and that is worse." Humanity did not launch fleets toward alien worlds. It did not issue threats or demands. Instead, something unexpected happened. Human systems went dark. Trade traffic vanished. Communication relays rerouted through unknown paths. Colonies that were once visible disappeared from standard scans. "They're hiding," a council member said. Zyrakel shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "They're decoupling." "What does that mean?" the member asked. "It means," Zyrakel replied, "that they are making it impossible to erase them." Within weeks, reports arrived from every sector. Human technology was no longer centralized. Human populations were no longer clustered. Human knowledge was no longer stored in single places. "They've spread everything," a strategist said in disbelief. "Every system is independent," another added. "There is no single point of failure." The truth settled like cold weight. Even if the galaxy attacked, there would be no final blow. On Earth, the human watched the last migration reports finalize. "We're done waiting," he said quietly. "Are we going to fight?" someone asked. The human shook his head. "No," he replied, "we're going to survive." The council convened one final time. "They're untouchable now," one member said. "We waited too long," another admitted. Zyrakel spoke one last time. "You tried to understand them as a threat," she said. You never understood them as a response. A council elder asked, voice low, can this be undone? Zyrakel looked at the projection of human space, no longer a place but a pattern. No, she said, they've already adapted. A message arrived then, broadcast openly across all channels. Not a threat, not a warning, a statement. We do not seek control, we do not seek conflict, we seek survival. Do not force us to choose again. The galaxy listened, because for the first time it understood. Humans were not dangerous because they were violent. They were dangerous because they learned, because they remembered, because they endured pressure until pressure broke first. The council stood down, fleets slowed, borders stabilized, surveillance reduced, not out of kindness, out of respect. Zyrakel felt the tension ease for the first time since the day she touched a human mind. They didn't threaten us, a council member said quietly. Zyrakel answered, they never needed to. Far across the stars, humanity returned to its quiet work, building, watching, remembering. They did not rule the galaxy. They did not dominate it. They simply made one truth unavoidable. Humans could not be controlled. Humans could not be erased. And anyone who tried would learn the same lessons Zyrakel had learned in a single moment of contact. Some minds are not meant to be entered.